Welcome to the Breaking Into Finance podcast. My name is Craig Thompson, and this is the open source field guide to help you understand everything you need to know about breaking into finance. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, today I'm thrilled to introduce Chandler Dula to the podcast. Chandler is a recent graduate of Williams College in Massachusetts, a elite liberal arts college in Massachusetts. And after 3 different internships in finance, he's actually starting full-time in consulting. But I wanted to chat with him a little bit about those internship processes, as well as a club he started at Williams called Margins. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. And a couple of reasons why I wanted to talk to Chandler. One, I think the motivations behind why he started Margins at Williams, I think is relevant to a lot of people. 2, he was extraordinarily successful at starting from a very low baseline as a freshman coming into college to somehow leveraging and through COVID, by the way, leveraging that into internship opportunities. I mean, this guy manufactured internships out of nowhere. I think he does a really good job, similar to my interview with Austin Kipp way back in episode 4, of starting from a base of not having a lot of access or connections into the space and manufacturing a lot of his own opportunities. And so we talk a little bit about his networking strategies and then also some practical tips at the end. So one thing that, listeners might not be thinking about so much is, let's say you get that internship and you're moving to New York or San Francisco for the summer. And now you have to figure out the logistics of, how are you going to pay for rent and where you're going to live and some of that. So we spent a little bit of time talking about the practical realities of being an intern in a city where you don't live. And we'll touch on some of that stuff too. And this is something that I want to actually spend more and more time on. I want to hear from more students and recent grads and kind of hear their voices and their questions and their thought processes. So I'm going to look to weave in a few more of these types of interviews in the coming episodes. Chandler, I'll turn it over to you. I'd just love if you could share a little bit about your background, your experience in school, what you studied, and what the next step is.
For sure. No, first off, thank you for having me. This is an awesome experience to be able to share with your viewers. But yeah, I'm a proud ETH graduate of Williams College in Massachusetts. I study economics with concentrations in science and technology studies and Africana studies. I got there from Atlanta, Georgia, so it was definitely a big transition to the cold weather and things like that. But ultimately on campus, I was a member of our men's lacrosse team, was very, very heavily involved in our Black Student Union, Society of the Griffins, other things like that. But throughout the years and just learning about finance and the opportunities in the world of business, kind of led myself and a couple of my peers to create a club. It's called Margins Finance Club on campus. And so that kind of all started with a mission of, providing individuals from diverse backgrounds and underrepresented groups easily accessible opportunities to learn and also just practice their skills for the various career paths in financial services. So I think this podcast is an awesome tag along to that. So really excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. And a follow-up question about that, which is, so Williams, I assume, has a student investing club or some other club. I'm curious, for you, could you just talk a little bit more about why you wanted to start Margins and what you felt like was maybe unaddressed or underaddressed by kind of like a, whatever the standard, finance club?
For sure. So got to campus freshman year. That was fall of 2019. It feels like so far long ago, but when I got to campus, I had no idea about finance. Literally just knew I wanted to do econ, and that was probably it. And so being able to talk with some teammates of mine who were, a lot of the students typically go into finance or consulting, and so they kind of gave me some pointers on that end. So I was like, okay, I think this is the path that I should go on. And so I was looking for some opportunities and things like that. And I think, as you'll find with a lot of different schools and who are interested in these type of things, you may need to have some sort of prior knowledge or maybe some sort of prior connection to some of the groups that you might want to join at first. So it was a little daunting. I didn't really want to waste anybody's time. It felt like, if I just joined the club and didn't really have anything to contribute because I had no idea what I was doing there. And so just felt like I wanted another opportunity to maybe like learn, but also just have a more safe space and things like that. But actually, after we got sent home for COVID, when we came back our sophomore year, a friend, my friend Nick, actually reached out to myself and a couple other people and was like, "Hey, like, I feel like there's a void on campus that maybe some people with backgrounds like ourselves, all of us coming from diverse kind of angles, with family members who really were not interested, really weren't, a part of this world and things like that, were able to give us pointers before we got to college." And so from that, it kind of grew and grew and grew. And we were like one of three, I think, kind of finance oriented clubs that popped up after COVID, with us being more focused on, diverse individuals and things like that. So that was kind of how that started. And, along that line, like we wanted to make sure that it was geared towards freshmen, sophomore, juniors, because that's like a really, really pivotal time. We do love our seniors, but we want to make sure that, you don't have to feel like you have to know it all before you step foot in the club or anything. And, some do deal with money, actual investing and things like that. So we don't deal with actual investing, but we love to partner with, real-time organizations who are out there doing the work that we want to do, and have voids that they also want to fill with diverse individuals, whether that's from liberal arts backgrounds or even just in terms of socioeconomic status, gender, whatever it is, being able to be a pipeline for that. And also a safe space. I don't think anybody knows it all, where we're coming from in margins, but I think the foundation is very, very important for people to just want to get their feet wet, and not be barred before they really have an opportunity to even discover what they might want to do.
So it sounds like you started from, if not zero, near zero, coming onto campus your freshman year. But you pulled, just looking at your LinkedIn, like, tell me about the Magnetar internship. Like, what did you do your first year? Because like getting a freshman summer internship at like a real, like a pretty reputable, like notable firm, you must have done something right. So just tell me what that first year was like, what you felt like was valuable that you learned, and maybe a little bit about how you learned it.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a crazy ride. I mean, just how can I even put this? So at Williams, we have kind of, well, before I got to Williams, you always hear about the alumni network, and that's pretty similar for all the NESCACs. Really, just, oh, there's this group of people who have this shared connection to you that are just gonna go all out and help you with whatever you want, just because we both wear the W on our chest. So I was like, okay, like that sounds pretty awesome, and that was one of the major factors that led me to Williams. But my freshman year is when I saw it really in action, and I was like, I probably won't see that in action until like after college or senior year, but it was pretty immediate. And so we have kind of this LinkedIn type thing for Williams students and alums. And so I was able to connect with a lot of people in the industry from that. If you ask my friends what I was doing, probably between December to February, I was on calls like all day, every day, just learning from people. And I think that's one piece of advice that I would give out, pretty early on, is just that you're kind of at an advantage when you're at a freshman, sophomore, because people like know that I have no idea like what's going on, and they really want to help me out. And so I think that that was one of the things that helped me out, just kind of like showing hunger, showing a drive, and just being able to be a sponge and just soak up everything that was available to me. Because, like we said before, like coming from, my background, like I went to Williams seeing it as an opportunity. Like I wanted to make sure that I got everything out of, the institution and my 4 years there that I could. And so like I just went hard with that. So all is that to say, went through EFLink and things like that, talking to a lot of people. We did a winter study course. So in January, we're able to take kind of an exploratory course. And so I took the investment banking course with one of my teammates' dads leading the course. And so that was very, very helpful for me we got a little bit of modeling experience, but also just listening to case studies and listening to people in the industry was very, very important, because if you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, you might just infer a lot of things that, it's better to just get clear focus on in the beginning. And so after that, COVID hit, got sent home. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what anybody's going to do in the world at this point. But another piece of advice I would give is that I was looking on our school's newsletter, and they sent out that they were going to have a kind of a webinar, just a little virtual meet and greet from a HR professional at Magnetar, which is a hedge fund in Illinois. And so I was just kind of like, I guess I'll just join, and I don't have anything else to do. We're just sitting at home and stuff. So listened to the call. I thought it was very, very informative. Didn't know anything about hedge funds or anything like that. I was pretty laser focused in on investment banking, and I thought that was kind of the world of finance, like all tucked in one. And it's like every time you learn one thing about finance, it's like 15 other doors open up to other opportunities. So listen to that. Afterwards, I make a point to always send an email to whoever speaks to me to let them know that I, really appreciated their time and things like that. So just send a little letter, let her know, hey, like, I'm new to this. I thought it was very important. I'm looking for opportunities, but, would just love to talk further. Basically, she sends a response back and is just like, yeah, like, thanks for attending. Didn't think anything else of it. So, 3 weeks later, actually, sitting on my couch, and I get an email from like our career guidance counselor. And she's like, hey, like, just wanted to let you know, the lady that came to speak with us, she's just opened up 15 spots at our company, and she remembered that you sent her an email, and she wants to give you one of these spots. And I was just like, this is insane. Because, dealing with COVID, dealing with all these things, to even get an internship as a freshman, virtually, that was like a pretty big deal. So yeah, that's kind of how I got it. It just kind of fell in my lap a little bit, and we did some really, really cool stuff, some case studies over the summer.
Well, you say it fell in your lap, but it sounds like you did a lot of creating your own luck. I mean, and there are a couple of things I want to double click on there. So first, you mentioned, Williams specifically had this like LinkedIn group,
Mm-hmm.
and did you, but like, you were in the group, but then did you just like look through the list of alums and you specifically reached out to, so it's like semi cold outreach, like they were in the group, so you kind of knew they were open to someone like you reaching out, but it wasn't like everyone was like posting like, hey, I'm hosting office hours and like, here's my like Zoom. No, so tell me about any like strategy, like for that, like semi cold outreach.
Mm-hmm.
How did you think about crafting that note? Like, how did you weigh like brevity versus like, explaining a little bit about your background? Any tips or tricks for someone who's like, man, I know I'm supposed to do cold outreach, but I'm nervous about how to do it?
For sure. And that, as a freshman, was probably the most nerve-wracking part. And so that's kind of why I started with that semi-cold outreach, just alums strictly, because as a freshman, I was like, what else is connecting us but this school right now? I don't have anything to offer you. I haven't done anything out in the world. So I guess this is all about learning. And so basically how I did it was, just filter by occupation. It didn't even matter what company you worked for. As long as it was in finance, you were probably going to get an email from me. And it made it easy because, I always wanted to make it a little easier on myself, because we're working hard like with school, but also having to do this on the side. So, you get yourself a very nice email. Hey, I'm Chandler. This is kind of where I'm at right now in my studies, but very open to talk. Definitely wanted to keep it brief, because I wanted them to really emphasize the point that I wanted to speak with them on the phone, and just kind of learn about their career progression from this similar point that we were sharing. And so you're able to kind of tweak that message a little bit, so you don't have to rethink every single time, but retweak that message, make it fine-tuned to each specific person that you're sending it to. So, because you're making it known that you value their unique experience, even if you do share some commonalities and things like that. So that was kind of the first thing. Schedule send is always a great tool to use, I would say.
When did you schedule the sends for? Like
Now
what time or
I'm a proponent of, I don't like the 7:30, 8:30, 8:45. Like I like to make it a little fun, maybe throw in a 9:17 or like a 10:08 or something, to make it seem like, I'm really up and at 'em, which I am, but I don't know, anybody pays attention to that, but I think it's a little fun game to play.
do you have a day
Um,
of the week?
I don't have a day of the week. I
Okay.
probably should. I try to stay away from Fridays
Yeah.
and, and maybe Monday mornings, but yeah. Other than that, I'll schedule it out. I think
Yeah.
Tuesday might be the day that I send out the most.
Honestly, it's something I think a lot about and have no conclusion for, but I agree. Like, I like to avoid Fridays because someone might see it and plan on responding, but then forget, and then it
Right.
gets buried with weekend stuff. And I try
Hmm.
to avoid Monday mornings because everybody's always trying to play catch up, and it's like a busy time. But anyway, second thing I wanted to ask about is the experience of being on those calls, because I've been on those calls, and I don't know what percentage of yours were like Zoom versus just a phone call, but when I was doing this back, whatever, 12 years ago, they were all phone calls. Like nobody really had like Zoom, and I felt like I spent all of my time being talked at, and all of this jargon was getting used that I didn't know what it was, but I had, like, whether it was like my computer, like pen and paper, and I felt myself doing a lot of like, uh-huh, yep,
Hmm.
uh-huh, mm-hmm, and just hearing all these words that I didn't know what they were, and I'd write them down, and then I'd go on like Investopedia or whatever. I guess now I'd probably just go on OpenAI and ChatGPT, but just like, what does this term mean? Like, how is it used? And that was kind of how I tried to learn jargon. But I don't know. I'd love to hear what your experience on those calls was like. Any advice you have for someone who's has one of those scheduled and isn't sure quite how it's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the vast majority are definitely on the phone, pretty quick phone calls between 15 to 30 minutes, I would say. My first piece of advice is just breathe. Like just breathe before the call. Um, I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in like this person is out achieving a lot of stuff that you also want to do. But at the end of the day, they're a regular person as well. Sure, they have a lot of responsibility, but remember that you also bring something to the table, and you also have valuable insight that could help them out. But obviously, we're in a position to listen and learn, and just soak everything up because their time is very valuable. So that was kind of the first thing I wanted to do. Didn't want to be too hyper, too aggressive, but definitely make sure that my personality was shining through and being personable and just making it seem like it was less of a transactional call, but more of just the start of a relationship with this person, no matter if this was the only call we would ever have or we would continue to talk for years. I mean, there's people that I reached out to freshman year who I still talk to and I still consider my mentors, based off, just a 15-minute call as a freshman. So that was kind of the starting point for that. I would say have a list of questions because yes, a lot of it is going to be them speaking to you about their progression, their kind of pitfalls and successes, and also just some advice. But I think they do really enjoy if you have a couple minutes at the end just to hear your own thoughts. And I think making your questions tailored, personal, but some off the wall questions are also cool. Just keep a question bank, on a Word doc or something like that. And every time, you might want to recycle some of them. I think that's a really, really cool tip that you can use. But yeah, I mean, most of them were just informational, not too much technical things, which I liked. And at first, because it might be like you said, like it's a little jarring to hear a lot of stuff that you don't know. But just speaking about, hey, like this is what I did at school. This is how I kind of ended up in my career right now. I always like to ask, people what they, like to see from younger professionals in their own organizations and just people that they've come into contact with, just so I can, understand how I want to model my own, work persona and relationships that I have in the work world for sure. So I think, finding what other people have done to be successful is very helpful. But I also sometimes ask about, pitfalls that they've had and just seeing other people, other leaders that they've had in their organizations, what is tripping some people up. So maybe I can avoid that. But yeah, make your questions interesting, but don't forget to let your personality shine through. I think that's very, very important.
So you've had now first you're a freshman, you had your freshman internship at the hedge fund. What was that? What was that like? Did you enjoy it? Is that would you want to work for a hedge fund at some point in the future? Is that on the menu potentially or
Yeah, I mean, I did enjoy it. It was pretty short. It was only about a month and a half, strictly because of, COVID and things like that. But they wanted to give us an opportunity to kind of get our feet wet. We were doing some like fundamental credit analysis and things like that. So analyzing a company and whether or not we thought that they were going to be able to pay them back on time, which was pretty cool. And it was a company I knew about. So things like that I think are very, very interesting. I also would say like just the work environment, even from there to what I did in banking felt pretty similar. Everybody was very, very driven. Everybody was very, very smart. So I wouldn't shut any doors on any sort of finance things, even after talking to hedge fund people, private equity people, banking people. I think they all have very, very unique things that they can offer in their respects. But at the base, I think, just having and I think that goes back to a different question I like to ask people, especially in hedge funds and private equities, this mindset of thinking like an investor and what that means and how what I was missing in the points that I was doing. So being able to analyze questions differently from each one of those vantage points, I think was very helpful in what I was saying. But yeah, I thought it was cool. I was a freshman working with a lot of other freshmen too, which was nice. So was able to, I think the biggest thing I learned was that was my first kind of presentation to management at the end with our project that we did. And so being able to just sit on Zoom and see 30 other faces, four of which were probably C-suite, being able to just speak confidently in front of them and present ideas and be open to criticism and feedback was very, very important. I thought that was one of the main pieces that I learned and took with me throughout the rest of my internships.
yeah, so that's a great transition point. So were you at RBC the next 2 summers?
Yes, I did. I did RBC's Pathways Diversity program my sophomore year. So that was that having that Magnetar kind of name on my resume was very, very helpful and helped me to be able to get into the interview, but also provide some pretty unique experiences, especially with everything that was going on at that time, which I think they valued at the time.
Yep. And so through that was that working at a couple of different groups in RBC? Was it all in the investment banking division? Or tell me about the sophomore internship and then about, junior internship and deciding to go back and all that.
For sure. So that was all investment banking. You could apply to different sections of the bank, but I knew I wanted to do investment banking, and so after I got the offer, after that I was able to kind of voice opinions on what group I wanted to join, and so I ultimately wanted to join M&A. I thought that was going to give me the greatest kind of foundation with modeling exercises, but also just working with a wide variety of companies and profiles. So I thought that was going to be a very, very informative summer. So at the time, a lot of us thought we were going to be working in person. That did not happen our sophomore year. We were still virtual. So working at the kitchen table and doing a pretty stressful job for a sophomore, but, we all got through it. And so I think one of the pieces that was lacking, and I'll talk more about that in my junior year, but just having people around you or having the option to
Yeah.
have
Oh
people
man.
around you
Yeah.
was very, very like just sitting at my table all day long, working investment banking as a sophomore. I mean, I would not do that again. I would much rather have the option to, have a cohort and things like that. And they did have opportunities for us to meet other interns and people that were working there, but it was pretty siloed. And I'm sure that was the case for a lot of different banks at the time. Just kind of working with our deal groups, and that was pretty much it. But all in all, I thought it was a very great experience my sophomore year, working on a couple deals, and worked on some in like water, utilities, things like that. But being able to come on and just see how the people that you've always wanted to be like, or just working in that environment, how they function, how they get through different problems, analyze things, being able to break stuff down was very, very important for me early on. Definitely very nerve-wracking to get your first couple tasks, because you feel like every save, every copy paste, every formula you put in is just going to be wrong. And you're just going to cost the company millions of dollars. But I had a couple great mentors just come alongside me and just be like, hey, like, we've all been there. We'll work with you to be able to get the skills to do what you need to do. And that was one thing I thought was very important, especially coming from Williams and, liberal arts. We don't have any concrete access to coursework with finance or business or anything like that. So I was really, really coming in fresh, just with, a couple background courses, like you said, the Wall Street Oasis and some guides and things like that. But nothing can really prepare you for doing the real work until you're actually sitting there doing it. And so that was just a very, very important part of my summer, just kind of getting over that hurdle. Also did another project at the end of our sophomore summer, presented it to more C-suite level executives, but also just people in my group that I've been working with and didn't want to let them down. And so I thought that was a very important piece that summer as well. So after that, I had the option of returning for my junior summer. I took that, and so was able to kind of relax for the rest of my junior year, and things like that. So once we got to the end of, so actually after I accepted the junior offer, plugged myself in with SEO. And so I thought SEO was a leading name, just helping, underrepresented groups and minorities get some really nice training and skills. So I thought I wanted to come a little bit harder in my junior year. So I was able to pair it with them, did some coursework, got some more Excel modeling under my belt, and just a little bit more familiarity with the topics, and also just how to hold and function within that sort of professional landscape. And so through that, I was talking to a lot of different people. Like they brought on Carla Harris. I was able to speak with her a little bit in a group. I was hearing from just a wide variety of high level professionals and things like that. So, and a lot of people that looked like me as well. So that kind of gave me a little added boost to continue to grow and continue my mindset in that regard. But got to New York this past summer in person. That was another shock. Being having to get dressed for real every day, going into the office.
Yeah, I'm sure you weren't the only one.
Right. Yeah. I think all of us were just kind of like, okay, this is totally new for us, but also, people getting back into the swing of things. So was able to rejoin M&A as well. So I went to M&A both summers, and actually was able to work with a couple of the people that I worked with the previous summer. So that made the transition a lot smoother. I kind of knew I kind of knew a little bit about the project that we had at the end, so I knew kind of how to pace myself. Also knew just some of the protocols, how we save files, like little stuff like that is very, very important. Like how to really document what I'm doing to people, or letting people know that, they're not in the dark of my progress and things like that. And also, just how we do all this. I mean, there's very, very little things, and I'm sure you know how to format, how to save, how to do things that you think are minuscule, but it makes a big difference to people there. But I think right away I was able to find some really, really great intern friends. And I think that's probably my biggest piece of advice, is just to find those people who you can count on very, very quickly, because, once stuff starts to ramp up, if you don't really have a good support net or good people around you to voice opinions and things like that, it could get a little hectic at times. So With them, I thought that, they gave me some very, very good confidence, to continue to do things. If I don't know anything, I know I can go to them and ask, hey, do you know anything? If they don't, then we might be in trouble. But being able to just find those people early on. Did a lot of the same tasks, managing data rooms. I think this past summer, they gave me um, a little bit more responsibility. I actually was sending emails to clients and things like that.
Wow. That's a
I
big
know.
deal. Yeah.
Was like I literally kind of I wouldn't say oversaw it, but I kind of helped out in like an NDA process. Like the associate and I were working on, compiling that stuff. And once he gave me the green light, he was like, okay, you send this email out. And so I was like, are you sure? Like, I don't know. And then, just being able to, and so that was one of the things I really appreciated about, the people that I worked with, especially on that deal, was that they just really, really took me under their wing, and were able to give me some stuff that I did not think. I thought I was going to be fully behind the scenes, but, little by little, they were allowing me to, kind of shine a little bit more. Working on bid summaries. That was a hectic day when bid day came through. That was something that everyone should maybe experience once they go into that profession for sure. But
Let's talk about that.
It's pretty insane because you're working with the company that's trying to sell themselves to another company, and so we're working with them a lot to really beef up their package and just make them very, very enticing and things like that. And so there's a lot of at the beginning there's like a lot of suitors for the company, and so we're all trying to get NDAs out there, trying to get first round bids, and there's like different rounds and things like that. But being able to really gauge interest and what is real and what is not, I think that comes from the higher levels, and being able to watching my MDs actually meet with these people and be like, oh, like I know them from this event and we've been talking for years and things like that. So it's very, very personal. I thought that was a good thing as well. But one day I woke up and it was time to go. So a lot of people started to submit bids and things like that. And so a couple bids you see and you're like, okay, this we could work with these numbers, and some immediately you're like, we're gonna need some more, or we're gonna have to workshop that with you guys. And so I was basically keeping track of all those, like what are the different bids we got? What are we thinking about that? Are they asking for different documents that maybe will help them out with their evaluation? So that was kind of my role in the VDR. That was a hectic day because they're coming in. You have to supply them with whatever information they want, but also turn stuff back to your managers and things like that they want information from. And you're keeping track of all the emails and just trying to make sure everybody's straight. I think that was one thing that I really learned about M&A for sure, is it's very, very process oriented. Like we are helping the process move along, and that takes form in a lot of different ways. It seems custodial at times, but also like it's like the meat of the transaction, being able to first value the company, but then get it done to where we can actually find another company that really wants this and it works out for both parties. And a lot goes into that behind the scenes, but I think at the end we're pretty pleased and things like that. And I mean, that was some of the money that gets thrown around. You're sitting watching it come in. You're just like, wow, like maybe one day, hopefully, I can put in a bid on something. But I think stuff like that was just really, really cool to see such at a young age. So that was one of the things that I really appreciated about my time in this summer. And just, I would have never thought I would have been in that position, but being there, having responsibility, being able to see the process move forward. I think if you like to see, real change happen very, very quickly, very, very fast, and you have a tangible impact on what's going on, I think it was a very, very great opportunity for that.
So you've done your now freshman, sophomore internships. Those are both Zoom internships, right? And now we just talked about the junior internship. You're in person, you're in New York. What was that like? I actually grew up in New York City, so it was very easy for me. I got to live at home. But tell me about all the logistics of like finding a place and like neighborhood. Like was any part of that particularly challenging, or any advice you give there?
Yeah, I mean, that was probably one of the biggest challenges, I would say, especially coming from Georgia. Like I'd never really lived in a city like that. And so once you get you get the offer and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm going to New York. And then you realize there's like 50,000 little steps that you have to take to really make that a reality. And so first piece of advice, like don't wait too long. And I think New York is like really crazy on that. Like sometimes like you have
Yeah,
to wait.
stuff pops out. Like you can't do it too
Yeah,
early either, right? So
right, yeah. It's like a weird kind of ebb and flow that you just kind of have to be in tune with. I mean, a lot of my friends did that junior summer got Airbnbs, and then some of them got like scammed. Like it wasn't even what they thought it was, or they didn't really get the apartment, so they were scrambling like while we had to report to the office like the next day. So that was really really insane. I lucked out because I was able to do the NYU dorm, so
mhm.
I stayed on the one, I think it was like Fifth Avenue, I think it's called Rubin Hall or whatever. Didn't have AC, so that's also one thing you might need to think about as well.
Yikes.
Waking up at 5 a.m. after you got home at 3 because you're sweating. So that's one thing for sure. Um,
Is that easy for people to like? Let's say I just got my internship in New York. Like, do I just Google like NYU dorms?
yeah, like I googled like student summer housing.
Hmm.
There's like a couple major, I forgot the names of them, but I mean it so that's another piece though, because I was a part of kind of that sophomore summer program that was a diversity program. So I'm coming in as a junior, pretty much as a regular candidate. But um, I could imagine for people who may be coming from backgrounds that don't have the resources to just kind of be like, yeah, I can put out $3,800 real quick to
Right.
NY, stay here, and I'll wait on my paycheck later.
Because you're paying up front for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a lot of upfront costs that you have to pretty much count up before you get that first paycheck. And even after you get that first paycheck, living in New York is expensive. So it could be, it's nothing. I'll say that, you're in New York working, so you're not going to be doing a lot too
Yeah.
much every day. But
Yeah. But your $18 sweet green every day is gonna
exactly.
add up. Yeah.
But that's another thing too. Like you got to take advantage once you get to New York, like take advantage of whatever perks or benefits the company has. Like if they say they'll let you Uber home for free after 8, I mean, if you
Don't
don't have,
leave at 7.
yeah, don't leave at 7. Stay. And also, just like, I don't know, like getting stuff in your apartment, like that's one thing I didn't have either. And I think that's kind of what contributed to me spending so much time in the office, was because the NYU dorm, like I didn't really have like a good work from home setup. So yeah, some people
Just
would
like a
work
really uncomfy wooden chair and a cot kind of
exactly.
situation. Yeah.
Like some people could leave at 10, but they would work till 2 at home. But I
Hmm.
had to be in the office because that was where the computer and the monitor was. So that kind of contributed to a little bit of the burnout too. But I think now, like if you can, and it's tough because that stuff is expensive too. So, you might only get the computer from the job, but not the monitors or the mouse or anything like that. And also just having a wardrobe is something too. Like even at Williams, something that we do is like give people headshots and try to give people access to professional work attire drives, stuff like that. And so making sure like, because one thing about this business is very relational. A lot of stuff is aesthetic, how you're dealing with a lot of money. So you walking into a boardroom or whatever, got to look the part. And so, being able, and that doesn't mean go out and buy the Gucci belt and things like that, but, making sure that you are able to look nice and, work hard, play hard, but, look nice and things like that. So there's a lot of costs that go into that as well. And so making sure that, people understand that beforehand. So, put yourself in the best position to succeed. Dry cleaning. I mean, there's just so much stuff you could talk about in New
Yeah.
York.
Just it keeps coming. It keeps coming.
Yeah.
About how many weeks into the summer did you hit break even on your, so you have to outlay money for rent. You maybe are like, you made maybe one suit or two suits, a few shirts, ties. I guess this is like a men's specific comment. Maybe like shoes, belt. Like let's say you're out all of that, but you still like, you get paid a lot. You just get paid whatever, 2 weeks, on a 2 week lag, or maybe you don't get a paycheck in the first week. And it's are we talking like maybe after like 6 weeks your break even, or 8 weeks after you start your break even?
See, another thing to take advantage of as an intern, you're technically, I forgot what the term was, but we were getting overtime. So that was really where we were making. That was where and we had a little joke with the analysts, like, you're staying up now, but I'm staying up too, but I'm getting a little bit of you right
yeah,
now.
You're getting a little extra for it. Yeah.
No, I don't get the bonus, but at the moment, we're doing pretty well for ourselves. So, yeah, I mean, I think once that kind of kicks in and you really start to work and really log your hours and stuff like that, you'll make it back. But that means you just got to be smart at the beginning.
Yeah, it really just means you got to plan to be in a hole for a little bit. But these internships are like, especially by internship standards, they're like very high paying in the aggregate. There just is this temporary liquidity mismatch that you need to just be thinking about.
Yeah, like I still have money saved up from my sophomore year internship. Like it'll stretch a long way, but just make sure you do a lot of the stuff up front so you don't have to worry about it, because once work starts, you don't want to have to think about getting the place. Do I need
you got enough on your plate?
Yeah, get it early.
Awesome. And now fast forwarding, you graduated this spring, and so tell me about full time that you have coming up and kind of how that decision process went.
This summer when I finished up, I was able to luckily, did a great job. I hope so. But, was able to secure some great relationships with people and an offer and things like that. And so when I went back home, was able to kind of talk it over with my parents and just really sit with myself and just think about the summer and think about everything that, happened. And I knew I had other opportunities on the table as well. Like I said, with Williams, a lot of people do go into consulting. And so I kind of was thinking about that as an opportunity as well. So that had never left my mind, even while I was doing finance and things like that. And also my brother's a consultant as well. So, speaking with him about a couple things was really, really cool to hear about what he was working on. And so, I just had to take up the cost, count it up. And, the summer was very, very informative, very, very helpful, and a lot of you're learning a lot. But at the same time, everybody should know it's a very, very demanding job, especially M&A, being all on live deals. It can get pretty, pretty hectic at times. A lot of late nights, a lot of things like that. But, I think people, when we start off on the journey, kind of understand it. We work sometimes at school till 2 a.m. and things like that, and, get stuff done. And I think that helped me out for it. But, you really just kind of have to think about, hey, is this something I want to do for the next 2, 4, 6, 8, however many years? And just be honest with yourself. Like, you might really, really enjoy an experience, but it might have run its course. That might have been what it was for you at that moment, and that was what you needed for that time. And so also thinking about, people that you've met, how do you fit into the culture? How are you liking it? What do you think you can provide? What do you think it can provide to you? I think that was one of the things I really also had to think about was, yes, you're relying on the companies to give you employment and work and things like that, but also, exercising your own autonomy in the process and really making sure that, you're spending 4 hard years at an institution to make the best life for yourself. Don't let it all go to waste just because you want to follow the crowd and things like that, but really, really analyze, like, what am I learning here? What do I see myself doing after this time and things like that? So that all goes to say, I made the decision to not return to banking in general. I just kind of left the whole world of it behind at the time, and so it definitely was not an easy decision. I would say because I built up 4 years up until that point in the world of finance, just talking to all these people and learning so much. And I think I wouldn't trade that for the world. I think it was a very, very formative experience. And um, luckily, I was able to find a job for consulting. So I'll be working at this company called Carney, also in New York. So I'm excited to be there. That was kind of the only thing I knew that I wanted to do for sure. I need to be in New York. That was always been my dream as a child. But my banking experience helped me out a lot in the interviews. You know, once I went to the case studies, which is another beast of interview process, but you know, being able to analyze kind of business decisions that was already ingrained in me from my 3 summers working in finance, and being able to just speak confidently about your ideas and present them in a succinct way. I think that helped me a lot. Um, but yeah, so I mean, that still goes to margins. Like even after I committed to go to consulting, it still was president of margins finance club, and I still made it a point to share my contacts, share what I had done, you know, really be real with students in terms of, you know, where they see that they can value from different experiences, and not go in blindly, completely blind. And so I think, you know, all of that goes to say, like, it just gets back to the point of just be honest with yourself. You don't have to continue with things that, you know, may be great, or other people are telling you that they're great, but you know, you just really need to sit down and count up the cost.
So now that you've seen sort of both sides, you've done the banking thing, at least, now 3 internships, and you haven't done the full-time consulting role yet, but it's coming in. Do you, for someone who's, thinking like, hey, I know that consulting exists and is a thing, I know that banking consultant is a thing. Do you have kind of any rubrics or frameworks for like how you might advise someone to help themselves understand which path is maybe better or right for them?
For sure. I mean, I think I had a very unique path because of M&A. I think working with just that gravity of deal flow, but also like just being able to see a lot of different sectors was cool. But then there's other stuff, like I could have been in coverage. Like I could have just worked really with one type of customer and things like that. And so, or client. And I think maybe if I was in one of those, that might have been a different experience. But, you know, I had to kind of think about coming on, analyzing a deal, getting the deal done. And that was pretty much it. You know, it's like, okay, thank you for everything. See you later. And so I wanted to kind of get a little bit like, even with our project that we did, you know, talking about valuing the company and the ideas behind why we thought this company should be valued like that. Then I had to keep thinking, like, I want to know what the CEO is thinking. What's going on behind the scenes? Why are they choosing this strategy? What is going on here? And a little bit more deeply into the story behind the numbers. And so I thought M&A got me almost there to the point. And I think, you know, what I was searching for in consulting was maybe a little bit more of that strategy piece, you know, being able to kind of sit in a room and just brainstorm. I felt like it was a lot similar to liberal arts kind of vibes and Williams esque type discussions and ways to analyze problems. And so that was really, really enticing to me at the time. And just being able to kind of dig deeper into one company. I thought, you know, juggling 4 different deals at a time was it's not for the faint of heart, I would say. But a lot of the conversations I had with consultants, like really focusing in on one project for whatever length of time it is, and then moving on to another one, was I don't know. I thought that was kind of cool to just kind of spend all my energy into that one thing. I would also say, like, I don't know. I'm sure there's different I think just the people that I met along the way as well, like seeing their hunger and their drive. I thought that was pretty similar across both groups, I would say. So that kind of, I knew I was going to meet smart, motivated people in both industries. So that was kind of fine with me as well. But yeah, I mean, those were kind of the biggest things that I thought of. I thought of, I mean, for me personally, I thought like, what is the Williams kind of network? Where are they at? And a lot of them were consulting. I didn't really have that many people at RBC, especially, but they right across the street, Goldman had a bunch of people I knew. So that was kind of another thing as well. And just kind of analyzing, I guess, what you think is right for you. And at the time, and I thought that was right. And I guess I'll figure it out in the next coming months when I start work and have to kind of learn everything again. I think that will be very, very important for me, in my development. And I kind of thought about my trajectory of what I want to do. Like, I think it would be cool to end up as a C-suite executive. I don't know. I don't know if that's where I'm going to be, but I think that would be cool. So just thinking about, business school, a lot of consulting firms will pay for business school. So that was also a enticing factor as well. Save some money there and be able to kind of go back to school. I think I do want to go back to school. Maybe take another break after working for a little bit. So I think that was also another factor. But all that goes to say, both excellent opportunities. And, I figured that I'm so young and still so new into everything that can't really hurt going to, a different side and just seeing it. Because, I have a belief if I really want to go back, I can work really hard and continue to learn and grow and be able to have both options as well down the road. So
Terrific. Chandler, first, I just want to thank you again so much for taking the time to do this, for sharing your experience with our listeners. Before we wrap up, is there any other topics that we didn't touch on or any other pieces of advice you want to share that comes to mind that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
I mean, I guess I just want to reiterate to the listeners out there and people like that to remember that, you bring something to the table. I think that's something I had to continue to tell myself throughout the time is, you're putting in a lot of effort. You're listening to this podcast. You're going out studying technicals. You're doing school. Some people might be even taking care of families and things like that on the side. Like, everybody comes from a different angle. And so it's not a one size fit all story for anybody. And so just remembering that, you have to do what's best for you. You want to bring value to the company. You want to bring value to your colleagues. You want to bring value to, other people's lives around you, but, making sure you take care of yourself, whether that's mentally, physically, anything like that. These jobs can be pretty challenging, but I think the reward is immense for people who want to really stay in it and find that kind of drive and people around you that want to continue to drive you forward as well. And continue to, if you want to make a club at your school or wherever you want to do it, like, by all means, like, please, because a lot of people may not be speaking up because they might feel like I did a few years ago, like, I don't know anything, like, I can't contribute. But you have to just create spaces for people to learn, create spaces for people to come together and socialize and just think about things. It doesn't have to be action all the time. Like, some people just might need to start off thinking, how am I going to do this? What are other people doing? Can anybody help? And asking the question, that's the first piece. That's the first step that we all have to take.
Awesome. Chandler, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time.
For sure. Thank you so much.
All right. That does it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. And remember to check out our website, breakingintofinancepodcast.com, where you can submit questions, join our Substack to stay up to date on new content releases, and much, much more. We'll see you next time.